Representative Ann Johnson, thank you for being here with me today. Let's talk about House Bill 3225. It's my understanding you voted against it. I want to get your reaction to it passing the House after a few hours, 2 hours, I believe, of debate.
Yeah, I think what's really been a shock to us this session is what I'm going to call partisan extremism. Trying to score political points by demonizing or talking about trying to protect children when in reality, what the bill does is bans basic public health from public libraries. And I think that sends a terrible precedent. And so I am proudly your former chief human trafficking prosecutor in Harris County. I have spent years in the criminal court system advocating for and protecting children from sexual abuse and sexual exploitation. So there are few people who know more than me how important it is to protect children. And so when somebody proposes a bill suggesting that it's about protecting kids, but in reality, I believe is actually going to be really harmful for children, you've got to step up and speak against it. And so I think we ought to be debating good policy and not what is partisan performative politics that I think most Texans are tired of it.
You feel this bill will be harmful for kids.
I
Why?
do. I absolutely. Well, when we're passing legislation, we ought to be thoughtful about what we're saying we want to do and whether or not the words actually accomplish it. And here the representative is saying that he wants to protect children from harmful materials such as things as pornography. Well, pornography is already banned. You can't have that in a public library to start. But then the definition that he creates on children is anything under the age of 18. So that's a huge group of an age difference and also references materials that would be found in basic medical or public health books around puberty, around teenagers, around normal questions of what's happening to their body. And so by putting all that together and claiming that somehow that's pornographic material when it's just not, and that you want to ban kids from having access to it, it denies children the opportunity to obtain an education around a normal puberty and health condition of which they need access to information. And so I don't appreciate him trying to equate serious harms for children and then just basic puberty. And to me, that's an excessive overreach and is a ban on good books that need to be available for kids and
Now
teenagers.
there
It's talking about teenagers.
Now there was an amendment, you might have been the one to bring it up, forgive me if
Yeah.
I'm forgetting, that would have reduced the age to 13. So if
Yeah.
you're less than 13, you would need a parent or guardian over 18 to approve this. Would you have voted for the bill if that amendment was included, even if everything else stayed the same?
Yeah, I think that that age difference would have made a big difference because what we're talking about are the materials that we're talking about when you equate two different issues. One is sexual exploitation with puberty, and then you equate the two ages that don't match. I mean, that's why I say we need to be thoughtful. And that's why the amendment was offered to say, look, let's recognize that at a certain age, you may not need access to this material. 13 seems to be a good age because specifically what we were talking about is the issue of puberty. I mean, it's just normal, right? Every individual at some age has had to have that discussion with their parents. And for some kids, they don't have access to their parents. A father has died, something has happened. And so if a young man needs to go to the library, the public library, where they can access a book about puberty to be able to explain things to them that maybe they don't want to ask their mom about, why would we deny them access to that information? The other thing that always frustrates me about this debate is we talk about material harmful to kids. And yes, we need to protect kids from harmful material. But I always like to warn parents, your kids are getting access to it. They're getting access to it on social media. They're getting access to it online. Deal with that. They are not getting this harmful material in a book in a public library. And so demonizing libraries, demonizing the access to educational information under this flag of trying to protect kids is nonsensical in this particular circumstance. And I think we need to speak honest truth to that, that, hey, we should do better and you should demand better of your elected officials.
Going off of that, do you feel that anything should be done, regarding access to information on the internet?
Sure, and we're doing it. I mean, we've already passed legislation. We passed it last session and we passed legislation again this session to protect that media outlets, whether you're an app that develops something that a kid can have access to, or you're a platform provider, that you need to start doing age verifications. You need to start paying attention to who is accessing the information to ensure that age appropriate information is available and kids don't get access to things that they shouldn't. So we do that all the time. I vote for that all the time. And that's why this bill is offensive to me. This bill doesn't address that issue. It addresses a non-issue by attacking public libraries and librarians for giving out public health information to kids and adolescents in puberty. And to me, that's just nuts.
There's been some concern that this bill is a form of censorship. Would you
Yeah.
echo that sentiment?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's book banning. That's what it is. And so when we talk about our democracy, when
Well,
we
they're
talk
not, I mean, they're
freedom,
not banning the books outright from the library. They're moving them to an adult section. Do you still feel that's banning?
I mean, when we've seen this before and we've had this happen in other sessions, but when you're denying children access to information about children's health care under the claim that you need somebody else or some adult to have the availability to it, again, if we're talking about pornographic material, that's a non-starter. That's already illegal. And so when you claim that, we don't need to pass that bill. That's already illegal. What you're talking about is you're talking about banning puberty and public health information from teenagers. That doesn't make sense to me. That defies logic, right? Every child has been in junior high and gone through public health, right? But to say that somehow that access to that information can't be available to them in a public library, again, what's the point of a public library? A public library is supposed to be there for access to the community and information. It's us as a community coming together to saying we want people to have a place to learn. And the library already has the mechanisms to control what is appropriate material or what is not. So to suggest that librarians are not already doing their job, again, is that this is a solution in search of a problem. This is not a real problem. This is not a real crisis. This is performative politics, and I think you sent us here to do a different job. We should be debating funding public ed. We should be making sure that people have public safety. We shouldn't be debating bills that are not necessary because it's a non-existent problem, or you're banning public health from teenagers out of public libraries.
Over the last few months, few weeks, did you have conversations with Representative Daniel Alders about this bill, or did he reach out to you? And if so, what were those conversations like?
Our conversations about it were on the floor during the debate. And I respect that he brought the bill, but I equally respect that there's a pretty strong opposition. And he won. He got the votes. And so now you're not going to have public health material available to children if this gets signed by the governor. And I do think that's a dangerous precedent. Again, we have big problems we need to solve here. People are worried about the economy. People are worried about their taxes. People are worried about public safety. People are worried about public education. Those are the things we should be really spending our time on. But banning books that have to do with public health from teenagers who might have questions about puberty, it seems to me that you sent me here to do something bigger than that.
If this is signed into law, what impact do you feel House Bill 3225 would have?
Again, I think it denies teenagers access to public health information. It's the definition is too broad. The age is too broad. We should have been more thoughtful about the realities of what children need to have information to at what age. And so, you may have heard me say this. I feel like I'm trapped in that movie Footloose, where we're just pretending like kids don't need access to information about their bodies and about public health and puberty in their teenage years in a safe space like a library that has a book that's based on science and medicine. If you deny them access to that kind of quality information, they're going to go find it on the internet, and you're not going to be happy about what they're finding there. So we should do better.
I do want to ask, one more thing about that amendment that would have reduced the age to 13. Some may have said even if that was passed, it would have been a form of censorship. Your thoughts on that?
I mean, again, the libraries already have restrictions. I mean, not everything is available to a library. We have the freedom of speech and the First Amendment, but we already have rules around obscenity and pornography, and it's all already there. That's what frustrates me about this. The guardrails are already there. The guardrails already work. This was a political debate just for political sake. And that's what worries me is when you keep having to have this battle and you go so far because you want to get a win here on a non-existent problem that you're denying teenagers access to public health and medical material in a public library. then I think people need to say, hey guys, maybe you need to focus on something else that's actually impacting my daily lives.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell our audience about House Bill 3225?
No, keep learning, keep educating, keep taking care of your kids, and making sure that as politicians, we're actually debating the issues that are causing your kids harm and not creating problems for you.